And I think I saw Corey Sandhagen say it on Rogan's, was like, he was putting all this pressure on himself and he just sat on the couch and kind of cried one night and was like, I want to fight for at least 6 more years. I can't live like this. And I think it was the same type of thing after the Gordon fight. Like, I was killing myself in my head. Like, man, like, couldn't you have gotten one more takedown and solidified the round? Then you would have had the win bonus for your fan. And it's just like, you can't live like that. You will drive yourself insane, you know? And I think for me, the biggest factor is understanding, my faith has been driving force. Some fights, when you're on the way up, you might get those guys where they're finding ways out of fights. This is not that fight for either of us. And I'm aware of that, and I think he probably will be too with his coaches.
When did you start training for this upcoming fight, man? You got an exciting one coming up now on December 2nd.
Yeah. I mean, so my family and I actually moved to where our head coach and our, MMA gym was the first week or the last week of August, first week of September. So pretty much when we got here, we just hit the ground running, I guess technically we're not in camp yet. That would be 8 weeks out, but
Okay.
Really ramping up, really, it's all pretty much the same aside from, maybe a little more sparring rounds in camp and, the conditioning changes as we get closer to the fight. But yeah, so it's been great. I mean, hit the ground running once I got here and was training, out of camp before that as well. And yeah, we're really getting there now. And another week or so, really start hitting personally, I'll start watching film and stuff my coaches already have. And then, yeah, everything else is just, it just kind of becomes hell on wheels for 8 weeks, right? We just kind of get after it. So, yeah, getting kind of prepping right now for that phase.
Yeah, 100%. So it's good to see that you're about to get into camp. Now, when did you find out about the fight, right? Because this was announced quite recently, right? It can't be more than a couple weeks.
Yeah, probably about 2 weeks ago, I think. And it was kind of weird because I found out about it on a Friday, which usually ends up being like a Monday or Tuesday when you hear, because they do a lot of the matchmaking early in the week. So
right,
kind of that weekend, there was a fight night and you don't really hear anything. And then finally, like around Tuesday, I started, getting contracts and stuff. So, yeah, about 2 weeks ago. So we were like 14 weeks out at the time. So, or maybe it was 3 weeks ago even. Yeah, so plenty of notice, just kind of a perfect timeline for me. And yeah, I'm really, really excited. And the perfect, perfect step up in the rankings
right.
and challenge. I think I fought some really tough, challenging opponents that are probably on Drakkar's level. But as far as, having the spotlight on it, having a guy that's a seasoned vet and a guy that's up in the rankings, I mean, it couldn't be a better step up in competition.
100%. I definitely want to get into that fight. Just to rewind, you said you moved closer to your coach, right? You're from New Jersey, is that right?
So I'm from New Jersey originally, but I left there right about the time I went to college. I went to South Carolina, trained in Myrtle Beach for a while. And then the last 5 years, we were in Wilmington, North Carolina. So
Okay.
Trained down there with John Salter and everybody at Salty Dog Jiu-Jitsu. And we would always come up to Gym O.
We've had a couple guys from there on. Yep.
Okay. Good gym. Yeah. Yep. Oh, yeah. Great gym. And we would come up. What started as like 2 days a week, John and myself, basically, if we ever lined up at in camp at the same time.
Yeah.
And then we would come up to help out some of the guys closer to our weight classes. John would come help Barbarena. I would come when Scott Holtzman had a fight.
Mm-hmm.
And then as time went on, John's a bigger guy. So I was really fortunate to train with him always out of camp. But then I never really got like 155 training partners, 170 really. So I still go back and forth to Myrtle Beach some because that was close enough. And then last camp was the first time that I did a majority of it here. So came up, the first half of camp, like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so a little more than normal. And then by the time we were like 5 weeks out, I was doing almost the whole week. So I really enjoyed just having everything in one spot because I've been traveling so much for so many years. And so then when I got back, I kind of made the decision of like, okay, I'm turning 30 this year. I just turned 30. So it was like, I definitely am healthy. I'm fortunate enough to be 5-1 right now. Like things are good in the sense of it's time to really double down and make a run, so it was just easier when I think about life. And this is what I'm actually really glad you asked this because, I've definitely left places before in the past because I felt like I outgrew it or maybe even had falling out sometimes. And for some reason, it seems like people always, just because that's kind of the world we live in, when I was saying like I really just want to double down, make a run and be close to my family, like there's always gonna be grumblings of like, of course, me and John know that's the case. I talk to him, I talk to other guys, but sometimes students will be like, "Oh, I bet he had to leave." No, I did the camp away from my family, and some guys that's really good for. They like to get away and they don't focus as well. But for me, it was just it was hell. It was not fun. It was because I was up here for like 12 weeks doing that, or 10 weeks. And my wife was pregnant at the time. And then my daughter was 2. Now she's 3. My son has been born. So it's just like, I'd hate to cut a career that I love so much short because I'm sick of being away from my kids and missing them grow up. So it was just I'd rather travel back to Wilmington to get awesome jiu-jitsu at Salty Dog than to have to travel to get my MMA work in and have my head coach. So it just made a lot of sense. And then on the other side, I was really fortunate enough to be able to start coaching here. So I coach the jiu-jitsu program in the evenings, 4 nights a week, and kind of starting to grow a program like that. And that kind of lets my wife stay home with the babies, which is, a real blessing. So that was kind of the logistics of it. And it wasn't an easy decision to make, but I'm really excited I did, because about, 2 weeks in, I was seeing how much time I was spending with my family and still getting like MMA specific work, a lot of good Muay Thai stuff that I've kind of been missing out on. And it couldn't be better. And then this week, actually, my wife had to took the kids back to Wilmington because my son had a doctor's appointment, and then to see family. And I, for like 3 days, I texted her. I was like, I don't know, I could not have done this again, like being away. Like I'd rather be away for a week than 10, but man, I could not have done another camp like this. So it's just awesome, man. I get to have my cake and eat it too, in the sense of, having the training camp kind of geared toward me and everything, but also getting to go home every night and be dad and, be a husband and all that, which is, it's what feeds me, man. And it's not fun without it. I did it last camp and it was not fun.
You seem like a good father, man. Like, just flat out, family's number one on the priority list, right? That's kind of like the life you live, right? Accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly it, man. Is like, I definitely don't take it lightly, I put a lot of that out there on social media because they were supposed to post, and I'm like, well, I don't really set up a tripod when I train.
Yeah.
People like message me and be like, "You still fighting the UFC? Are you still training?" I'm like, I probably train out of camp more than anybody. Like, I train so much, I love it.
You're just a fighter. You're not like a social media influencer.
No, I try to post something. If I do, I try to make it somewhat profound and like talk about how much I appreciate fighting. I do.
Sure.
But it's the same thing with being a parent and with being a husband. Like, it's stuff I don't take lightly. Like, I found something, it just clicked. It's kind of the same thing as when I met my wife. Like, a lot of people, they'll post and it's kind of like when things are on the fritz, but it's just, when we met, it just kind of made sense. Like, I really wasn't looking for that. I was really focused on jiu-jitsu at the time, and right, maybe making the change to MMA eventually. And it just felt really natural. And it's the same thing with parenting. We have our bad days, of course. Like, my daughter's a tyrant, dude. She's 3. Yeah. She bosses us around and stuff, but man, it's just never felt like, besides fighting and being a husband, it's the same other thing where I'm like, oh, this is just what I feel like I was meant to do, So in our house, we really do. And even my wife, even though she's not a fighter, although she started taking kickboxing classes recently, it's like faith, family, and fighting is kind of our pillars, and kind of in that order as well, because without the other two, the other one doesn't happen, and vice versa. And it's worked for us,
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. Those 3 things that you guys live by, but just from the outside, I could definitely tell it's what you preach. And I think sometimes the best things in life happen unplanned, right? So touche to that. It must have been a busy week for you, though. Again, we talked about the fight announcement and all that, right? Because aside from that, you just signed a new multi-fight deal with the UFC, man. Congratulations on that. But, if you look at it a little bit deeper, I don't think it's something that could be overstated, right? You got shows like The Ultimate Fighter, Contender Series. I mean, you were on Contender Series. Guys are kicking and scratching just to get where you are right now, right? So, when you look at that, right? Also, guys that have been in the sport forever, they never get into the UFC. When you look at that, right? Is there a sense of gratitude? Like, is that an overwhelming emotion when you sign a contract like that? Like, I'm still here, I'm where I want to be, and the fact that I re-signed means that I'm doing something right. Is there gratitude in that?
Dude, 100%. That's the best way to put it. Is like, I want to get in there and kiss the canvas every time I step in there, because you don't know. And I guess it's something that comes probably with being a parent too. Like, you get perspective on stuff, but also I'm right in a sweet spot where I feel like I'm entering my prime, but that's definitely not a rookie, and that hunger to get there, you almost rush through things. But now that I'm here, I get to train with a lot of guys that are up and coming, and seeing how hungry they are is really cool. And B is, you start to see them rushing through too, and you want to stop them and be like, no, appreciate this fight where you're making $500 because it still is a good time. It's going to be something you look back on fondly,
Yeah.
But to see, dude, I mean, I don't follow the app, or the account, but on Twitter they have that roster watch, and I see it retweeted all the time. Oh my gosh, like, people are coming and going every day. So to be here,
100%.
I mean, when I got here, it was like, on the Contender Series, I just want to get to the UFC. Okay. And then it was like, I just want one win so I can be at least a UFC vet when I go try to teach seminars or something. And then it was like, all right, got to get to that second contract. And now to sign a third contract, I don't think that lightly at all. I think that's, it's awesome, man. It really does. I was just talking to my coach about it. I'm like, this is kind of a form of like we have guys and girls in the gym that they're really good. And sometimes they don't see maybe how we see them and how good they could be. And I was telling my coach, I'm like, dude, like this is the American dream. Like these kids come in here with nothing and you can use your fists and your feet and, your grappling and you can go actually make an honest living and make a nice life for yourself. And I definitely feel like I'm living that. I think I think about that a lot now, and it's been awesome. And that's really one of the other things with coaching is like, I want to help the next generation underneath me, see that. And another thing that really put a lot into perspective was, one of my closest friends and my coach, John Salter, retired recently. So he's a couple years ahead of me. So kind of get both sides of it. I'm in the middle of it. I have guys underneath me, and then I got to watch somebody kind of sail off in the sunset and do it the right way. He went out on a win, and
And
but
then you're
also
kind
how
of in
much,
between both of them.
yeah, exactly. And I try to learn from both, and watching him and how much it meant to him truly, and then also my friend and teammate and also now manager Scott Holtzman retired the end of last year, and same thing, watching him go through that last camp and talk about, kind of framing it different, like this weight cut, yeah, it might suck, but like I'm gonna miss this, I'm gonna miss that, I'm gonna miss working with you guys in the room every day, and it goes very quickly, So yeah, I definitely appreciate it. Long-winded answer, but I definitely appreciate it.
That's a great mindset to have. That's a good way to look at it. Let's talk about this fight. It's the fight that many are excited for. As far as this matchup with Drakkar, right? What kind of fight do you think we see on December 2nd based on the preparations, what you've seen from him, your style of fighting? What kind of fight do you think that comes with?
I mean, it's so hard to make predictions,
Yeah.
and not even down to how I think I'm going to win or what he's going to say the same thing, right? But everybody's so well-rounded, but especially as you get higher up, like even in my fights, I've ended up on the feet with guys that are, highly touted Muay Thai guys and edge them out or been even or so. People look at sometimes like specialists and he's going to try to do this and that, but the guy is well-rounded everywhere, So like we've even talked about, it's not out of the question he'll try to take me down, So I think it's going to be one of those. It could either be a chess match where it might be slow and steady, and we're a nice technical exchange, and it could also go haywire really quick, where maybe at the end of it we're getting fight of the night. Now, obviously, I would like to come out and put my pace on him and control for 3 rounds, and I think everybody knows what that looks like for me is setting up level changes with strikes and put him on his back.
Right.
That's what I've trained to do my entire life. But at the same time, I know what this can be. This guy's world class, and so am I. And it can become a lot of things. But I do see me trying to put the pace on. I think that's something that's really changed, especially we talk about going from first fight in the UFC or first contract to now, and he's a vet as well. But I've gotten as comfortable as you can, being in that cage in the sense of I used to think about trying to control adrenaline and don't get tired. And now it's just about trying to push a pace and break your opponent, and I know he fights the same way. So I guess we'll have to get there and see how that goes. But I'm really confident in my coach and our game plan. And I think I can edge him out everywhere. I really, really do.
It's going to be an exciting fight. As far as his style, right? Not to say when you analyze somebody, it's different than when you're just watching them for fun, right? Like I'm sure you've seen plenty of his fights before, but you haven't seen him to the degree that you have now that you're preparing for him, right? You don't have to give it away because obviously this might be an important factor in the fight, but did you see something along the way watching film, preparing for him where you're like, oh, I didn't see that before when I was watching his fights? Like, that's interesting. Are you seeing these kinds of things along the way as you're preparing for him?
Well, I know my coach has, because he started that process already. For me, I
Is he
watch
more the film guy, your coach?
He is, but I will too.
Okay.
I don't obsess and I don't get too specific because you have to look at it in the sense of, and not from a place of arrogance, like, oh, I'm going to beat this guy, but going, they've never fought me. So he might have a great kick, a great body kick, and then he fights a grappler and not throw body kicks because I'm going to get caught and taken down. You don't know. So I try to take it with a grain of salt, but I'll start mine. I'll watch it usually 8 weeks, and then I'll watch again a month out, and then that's it.
Okay.
So what we've started now is my coach will watch, and he's already said some things, but we haven't really started focusing on him. We've started some drills and in our game planning sessions, like our skill work sessions, that are based around like where we think we can fit in, and then it'll start to get more specific and more specific. Then we'll talk about him some. He does a really good job of that where there'll be like a template, and we kind of chip away, chip away, chip away, and then by the thick of camp, you're like, oh, I see. He throws this. That's why we were doing this, and it kind of takes that anticipation away because I think that can be really bad. I fought guys that I think were anticipating nothing but level changes and takedowns out of me, and then I hit him with a left hook, and they look very surprised. So I think it's good when you're not expecting, but you know what he does well, and that's what we're trying to do. So, but yeah, from what I have seen already, and I'm a fan. I like anybody in my division that's at a high level. I like to watch guys. So.
Hey, he's been in fun fights. I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is.
And I have, Scott
so have you.
was my teammate for a long time, so he trained the lab as well. Where I don't know if Drakkar's still there. I know he goes back and forth fight ready as well, but so a lot of the same style, a lot of certain striking things they do well. They're all very good at getting up because guys are different in a camp, but there's also going to be tendencies from a camp, and so we know where they're strong too because I've trained with a lot of guys from the lab, and they're all very skilled. So we kind of know what we're dealing with, and we're ready to dial it in and get ready for it.
Both of you guys have only been finished one time in your career. When you're drilling for a fight like this, is it important to keep in mind we got to prepare for a hard 15 minutes? Is that something that comes to mind? Because you're both durable.
Absolutely. That's one of the first things we started in camp was the prep for the up and down and the up and down and the up and down and the back and forth and the wall and a pace. And even this far out is making sure it's always 3 hard rounds and sometimes more. We're wrestling 6-5s and 7-5s and 8-5s and just making it really grueling far out. And then as we get closer to the sparring, we'll get more concise and more intense. But it's exactly that. It's conditioning for we've got to know that this is a durable guy and a guy that's really well rounded. So it's not maybe the fight where you take them down once and you go, oh, he doesn't get up till next round. Like, this guy's good, I'm good too. And I'm sure they're training the same way as you got 2 very durable guys who seem to find ways into fights when they're tired or hurt or sore, whatever, in danger. Whereas I feel like some fights when you're on the way up, you might get those guys where they're finding ways out of fights. This is not that fight for either of us. And I'm aware of that. And I think he probably will be too with his coaches.
Yeah, I think that's a good assessment. And I saw Dana White recently say something that was kind of interesting. So I thought I'd kind of ask you. Dana said that it wouldn't be a bad idea to make the rankings like up to 20. And the reason I'm curious and I want to ask you this question now is it feels like you're sort of in that 15 to 20 range. I mean, what are you, 6-5-1, 6-1 in the UFC? I mean, it gets to the point where you're going to have to get in, you're going to have to start rubbing shoulders with the ranked guys already. I mean, Klose is pretty much of that talent. Do you feel like you're already in this echelon where next fight will be a ranked guy or you're going to be set up for, you know what I mean? Do you already feel like you're in the echelon of all these ranked guys? Because, I mean, this is such a good division, right? It's like, such a good division. And I know why it feels like it's a smart idea to make it ranked to 20 because it feels like you're already in the rankings. Do you feel like you're in this echelon of like ranked guys already and you're already fighting the best? Because you fought good guys already in the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, I fought the record holder for most wins and most fights, so that's definitely not a bad feather to have in the cap. But at the same time, it's such a weird paradox because I'll leave training, I'll look at my coach or teammates or friend, whatever, and I'll be like, man, I can hang with any of these guys on any given day. But at the same time, when you say that, I go, I didn't think of myself as there. Like, I thought just I'm in the pack, because I'm such a fan, like I came up as a kid and I didn't really, no one saw this coming. You know what I mean? Like, I was not a good competitor. I'm not a blue chip prospect. I scratched and clawed my way here. So to sit there and go, yeah, I might be creeping in on that 20 if there was actual rankings for that. Because I think on Tapology, I'm like 32 or 31 and take out the Bellator and PFL guys.
Okay.
That
well, yeah, there you go. There you go. Right, right. So you would be.
That's everybody. So yeah, maybe so. That'd be pretty cool. But do I think I can hang with any single guy? Yeah. Is it weird when you get a name? I mean, Klose, I feel like is close to me, no pun intended. But if I got like a Poirier, a Dario, somebody like that I really am a fan of, that might be weird for a second, like Miller was. But then when you watch them from the lens of I'm going to fight this guy, I go, yeah, I can hang with any of them.
So I feel like you're good to go with any guys in the division. Let's say a top 10 guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, there's going to be matchups that you prefer, but on any given day, if they walk into a sparring room, I think they're going to walk out being like, that guy's freaking tough.
Okay.
And I'll probably say the same thing about them. And then on fight night, you see who woke up on the right side of the bed or who deals with the anxiety better or who listens to their coaches better, But 100%, yeah, I think man, I've been able to train with some guys that are really good and really, I've trained, and not just in MMA, but like world-class jiu-jitsu specialists coming through, and I go, man, I don't talk about it, but like I think I could do really well at the world level in jiu-jitsu, or I'll strike with a striker. Like I feel like I do well, I have no doubt in my mind. But until you sign that contract, for me, like with Miller, I would look at that as a guy, I'm never going to fight Jim Miller. He's a future Hall of Fame, this and that. And then when we signed the contract and I watch from that lens, I'm like, all right, this guy's going to have a rough night. I'm on it. Like, until it comes, I don't really see myself like that because I just look at it as taking what I got in front of me. Right now, I'm worried about Drakkar Klose, not, Fiziev and Gamrot last weekend. I watched the fight as a fan and I always analyze because I love the sport. But
Yeah.
I wasn't watching it as like, well, where can I beat him or can I hang? I'm just thinking about Drakkar Klose and getting better every day. But if I signed to fight one of those, 100%, I think I would feel confident.
Did you watch the Gamrot Saryukin fight?
Not. I never watched him in Saryukin. I watched him in Fiziev last weekend,
I'm
which
sorry, I
had the
got the names
anti-climatic
confused.
ending.
Yeah, no, I was talking
But I
about
heard
him and
that was a
Fiziev.
great fight too.
Did you watch it? That's what I meant. Did you watch Fiziev
Yeah,
and
we did
Gamrot?
watch it. We watched. Gosh, I fell asleep for the first half of the main card, which was like 7:30 or 8 o'clock, which is pathetic. But
No, I feel you. I
I
hear
woke
you,
back
bro.
up for
I
the
fall asleep during so
co-main.
many fights. I'm like, it's not even that early.
Yeah, and then we watched the co-main in Maine, and then yeah, it was great. Unfortunate ending, but it was really fun before that. Same thing. You see the type of that's I think people don't understand. Like even the commentators were dumbing it down to like grappler, striker, and you're watching Gamrot catch him with crisp right hands, and then you see Fiziev being able to wrestle with Gamrot. Like dude, like at this
Right.
level, everybody's so good at everything. Like just because they're amazing in one area doesn't mean they're not world class in the others. I think that's what people misconstrue, especially at lightweight, where like you said, like 5-1 at 205, I'd be a co-headline or headline in Fight Nights. This is a
Honestly, that's
different
true.
division, man.
You just
It's
so
a
happen
different
to be in the
division.
best weight class in the world.
I mean, but then again, I wouldn't be able to be a pro athlete in any other capacity because the guys at 205 and 85, those blue chip athletes, they're playing other sports that make good money. So
Yeah,
it's a little
yeah.
easier to rise, I think.
It looks like you've been sprinkling in some grappling matches right between those UFC fights, right? I mean, not everyone's doing that. Some guys are, but not everyone. I mean, you even beat guys like Donald Cerrone. What's the motivation behind that? And do you plan on continuing to sort of sprinkle some of these matches forward as you go?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's it was something I stopped and not like thinking I was too good for it, I guess, but maybe just being like, oh yeah, I fight for a living. And then I lost to Jared Gordon and I just wanted to do something to get some competition back in me. And, so we went to the ADCC trials and that was a blast. I went 2-1. It was fun. It was just a good time. It brought me back to like, oh yeah, like I really love all of this. I love competing and all that. And that kind of got that going. And then after that, we did the Fight Pass Invitational, which was the first time I ever did like a quintet type thing. And that was a blast. And then after that, a quick turnaround, they had an opening for the Cerrone match. And I was like, dude, like, and kind of the thought process is just like, I love this. It's a small way, not the ADCC trials, but the other two, to make a little money for my family. Why not? And then number 3 is like, life is short. This is all going to be over soon. Like, why would I not want to do this? Like, I got to grapple a legend. It's a blast. And also,
And you
I
won.
feel like any chance to go do big things and test myself, like now I think of it from like a parenting standpoint, especially like I want to go do this stuff to like at the Cerrone match. I'm not going to get to have my daughter probably at a fight. She's 3. She'll get all scared. But at a grappling match, it was perfect, and I posted a pic and I was like, she'll never remember this, but I'll never forget it. So it's like, I don't know how many
There's
times
cameras
that
though,
offer
right?
will come. Yeah, exactly. And I don't know how many times I get to do that in my lifetime, so it's cool for them to see and be like, oh, like you took big opportunities, but then kind of so you could make it about us, and they're not going to remember it because they're pretty young, but that's the kind of thing I want to do. I may even sneak back into like master stuff when I'm retired from fighting, 10 years from now. I don't know what the heck else I'm going to do with myself. I love to compete. So it just keeps it fun and fresh.
That would be interesting. Also, it's just a sport that's so violent. Like, God forbid, you'll be fine, man. But God forbid, I mean, look at Weidman. The dude snapped his leg off one kick, and it looks like he hasn't been the same since. So,
Well,
you
that's
never
the
know
thing
what can
is
happen.
like this next fight, my daughter will stay back because she's 3, but my son will come because he's 8 weeks and just trying to understand colors. So it's and because he
With the
can't be without his
giant
mom.
headphones on.
Exactly. Yep. But my daughter would lose her mind, so we could never do it. But yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I saw you put something online that you're no longer defining your identity by the wins and losses. I thought that was a pretty good message. Is this something that changed recently in your mindset where you're not looking at yourself sort of just on paper like a statistic? When did that change for you and why?
I think also the Jared Gordon fight. I think losing
Really?
is one of the best things for you. When I got here, it's like that mentality of. I mean, I guess the first fight it was, It's never. My coach said it best when we were one of the fight days when we were doing our little walk in quarantine. And you always try to compare to this last fight, and do I feel like how I felt at the contender, And he said, dude, it's like the old adage, like the man dips his foot in the river, but it's not the same man and it's not the same river because it's always flowing. It's
Right.
always changing, and that's a big thing. Is like when I got to the UFC, you always have to find something to make it the present moment, make this one the most important, and because it's always the next toughest one. But you can't. If I'm sitting there going, oh, I'm treating it like I'm trying to get to the UFC still, it wouldn't work, right? So, when I got to the UFC, it was just the excitement of I'm walking out for the first time in this arena that I pictured since I was 10 years old. It's not very hard to think about. Then we were in COVID and there was nothing going on, and I had a baby on the way. So then that was just strictly business of like, I'm going to go out and try to get everything I can. And then Jim Miller was Jim Miller. And then it was new contract time. And then it started to be like feeling that pressure of imposter syndrome. And that was the first time where I felt it. And it was almost going, okay, well, new contracts. Well, let me try to take the pressure off myself. And I've never done this in my entire life. Like, I want to win. And I was like, let me take the pressure off. Like, well, the money, at least secure. And it started playing games of comfort, And that was when I got back to competing after that and being like, oh, yeah, like, this is what I want to do. I want to compete among the best. Like, and when my time is up, my time is up. God forbid I lose 3 in a row and I'm gone. And that was God's plan for my life. And I think the biggest factor into that was my faith and having that understanding of like, I do believe it's all God's timing. It's not, we always say I try to work as hard as I possibly can, like I'm in control of the outcome, but we ultimately have to accept that this is a crazy sport and we're not. Like you said about Weidman, right? Like I was there for that, a lot of that camp. He put on one of the best training camps of his life.
Yeah.
It's a crazy game, and we have to make the right decisions and stuff. But ultimately, I could slip the way the coach trained me to do a million times, but that's the same time he threw his leg up like Usman, and look what happens. So it's having that freedom of being like, it is what it is. So that's when it really changed. That's the Gordon fight, and then understand that and just maturity. I'm going out there, and there's always something new and always something changing, and it's ultimately to test myself. If we start looking at it like a job like that, it's a good way to suck the fun out of it too, and of course it's how I provide for my family, but it's also a selfish dream that I've wanted to do since I'm a kid. And I think if I lose sight of that ever again, I'd be in a lot of trouble. And I don't think I will, it's the appreciation for it now. And now there's so many different reasons, before we had COVID lockdown for 5 fights and my wife got to come to the last one. It was a big, huge pick me up. Now my son's going to, there's always just so many different things to focus on besides the stress of fighting, to remember that this is a really fun thing that we get to do and a fun challenge. And I think I saw Corey Sandhagen say it on Rogan's, was like, he was putting all this pressure on himself and he just sat on the couch and kind of cried one night and was like, I want to fight for at least 6 more years. I can't live like this. And I think it was the same type of thing after the Gordon fight. Like, I was killing myself in my head. Like, man, like, couldn't you have gotten one more takedown and solidified the round? Then you would have had the win bonus for your fan. And it's just like, you can't live like that. You will drive yourself insane, and I think for me, the biggest factor is understanding, my faith has been driving force.
Yeah, over analyzing could be definitely a bad thing sometimes. As far as the imposter syndrome, I mean, I'd love to pull up a statistic of how many people even get a second UFC contract, much less a third. So hopefully, that imposter syndrome's gone. I mean, you've already earned it at this point. Curious, you keep bringing up the Gordon fight. It seems to ring very significant to you. You're focused on this fight 100%, but is that a fight, given how much it took a toll on you, given how close it was? Is that a fight you would ever want to get back? Or are you a competitive guy like that? Or are you just like, because I've seen it both ways where they just don't care. If it happens, it happens. Those are the guys that are dead set on getting it back. Where are you?
Probably more towards don't care. You know what I mean? Like, actually, it's funny because like an hour ago, he posted something of a mutual friend that sponsored him. And I commented, I was like, oh, they're the man. I hope you're well. He said, I hope you're well. I said, good luck. Like,
Jared Gordon seems like a nice guy.
I don't think there's anybody that doesn't like him except maybe Patty, who's
exactly.
So, yeah, that's just because he knows he lost that fight. But no, I mean, if it happened, it would be cool, and if it didn't, it would be cool too. I really could care less because it's on to the next best thing, and that's kind of another thing in the fights that we've talked about that really, I think, has taken me from like a jiu-jitsu specialist early on to like a full-fledged, pretty darn good fighter. I think is like being just tough. Is like our coach always says, like, you got to get the next best thing. And like, you miss the takedown, you don't stay on it and let him pound your head in. You get the next best thing and that's what fighting is. If I'm sitting here worried about him, I'm certainly not going to be focused on close or the next best thing. And, I'm also out here providing for my family. So I'd rather not hunt a rematch. I'd rather hunt the best fight I can get. This one, like you said, could put me up there. Who knows? And it's all just part of the game. So I really, does it get me chapped up a little bit about what happened? Yeah, I think I could have done a lot better. But I'm sure he felt like that too. So it doesn't really matter. But I'm competitive, so I'm always gonna think back to I grappled Gary Tonin 8 years ago, and I still think about it. I'm like, oh, if I didn't put my foot there, maybe I could have. Who
Yeah,
cares? I'm in the UFC fighting for a career, but like
that's right.
I think about matches when I was 15 that drive me nuts. It's just how I'm gonna be. I've accepted that at this point.
One more question, man. We appreciate the time. How are things going with the All In Grappling promotions? That looks interesting.
Yeah, it's been a blast. It's one of those things where I'm really stubborn. I don't want to do something unless I like it. I will, of course, like I want,
Sure.
but I got to look at what it is that I do. Like I don't have I true. When we moved, we've had to put our house up for sale. I had to do a lot of repairs. So I know that is not I don't have any life skills besides fighting and jiu-jitsu. Like I've learned real quick when I try to do real life stuff, it's not my forte. So when I look at like you hear guys saying like getting into other avenues and trying to build businesses and stuff, it's like, okay, I could try to get into the restaurant. But like, what am I going to do? I don't have any skills, but I know grappling. I love grappling. I'm passionate about it. So starting that was kind of a no brainer because I like to spend my days doing stuff like that anyway, like going to tournaments and stuff. So it was a project, but also a business that we've started. And the first two have gone fantastic. It's been really fun because we do it both ways. We do our super fight event with like, black belts coming in. My teammate and friend Jamie Pickett was actually the main event. So we had a UFC fighter on it, which was cool.
Wow.
Yeah, and he grappled a good black belt. Like it was exciting, But also during the daytime, we run a regular tournament where all the kids come and compete, and white and blue belts that are just getting started. And I just remember what that meant to me to have places to go, and also as a kid coming up in jiu-jitsu, every tournament is freaking $120. It's not easy. I mean, we have 3 kids in my family. Like that's not. Then you got
Yeah.
to pick and choose which ones to use. So we try to charge, $50 cheap. Try to get everybody a couple matches. So it also kind of brings me back to my roots of being like, okay, like we had one family come up and the mom was like, thank you for doing this. And it almost makes it all worth it more than like the people that complain about waiting for their match or something. So it's been awesome. And now what we're doing between, because I moved up here to Gym O and our facility is pretty sick. And we have like a full cage and we're able to have the resources to some professional videographers and lighting and stuff. And
Nice.
so they've been doing some smokers the last couple months for kickboxing. And now that I'm here, we're going to do a grappling one. So I'm calling it the All In Grappling Smoker Series. So that'll be more of just super fights. So every couple of months, we'll have our big event about quarterly, and between we'll do some smokers. So this one's a quintet. So I got a couple teams signed up. They'll come, and then we'll have spectators. So just kind of getting guys used to being under that spotlight, being the walkout, the cage, being the only match going on. So because I put it the same day as the ADCC trials, and someone messaged me like, why did you do that? I'm like, because this really isn't for people that are going to do the ADCC trials. This is for
Right.
guys to get their feet wet,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been awesome, man. It's been a really fun thing. That's what I do. 3 things. I fight for a living first and foremost. I coach jiu-jitsu, and then I do a tournament. And all 3 things I love. They're just really, really fun, and they're all the right amount of stressful, especially competition day. Our 2 tournaments, I stayed up until 4 a.m. both nights before, and then we had to be up
Damn.
in the U-Haul delivering the mats at 6. So yeah, I was like, oh, this is a different kind of rush too. It's like fighting, like just stress and prepping and last minute, and like so it's fun, and that's a family thing. My wife gets involved; she helps out a lot, so it's kind of fun for us to do as a family too. So yeah, it's been great. I appreciate you mentioning it.
Yeah, 100%. And that sounds awesome. I'm going to have to look more into that. But nonetheless, Joe, we do appreciate the time. Congratulations on the new UFC contract. Wishing you and the family all the best. And most importantly, man, good luck on December 2nd, man. It's going to be a
Thank
fun
you so
fight.
much, man. I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.